senators take their seats, please?
Madam Chair.
Madam.
How are you?
It's been better. Thank you, everyone. We are going to get started. The Executive Nominations Committee is ready to meet. Thank you to everyone that's attending tonight. I will ask you as you come to the podium, your senator will introduce you, or I will introduce you if your senator's not here, but feel free to introduce any family that's with you. If you'd like to introduce any friends or family that are here to support you. I hope you've had time to enjoy the beautiful city of Annapolis, or that you will after you appear tonight. So thank you all for being here, and we're going to get started. So our very first person tonight is Senator Smith here yet? Not yet. Okay. Well, I'm going to start out with Laura Crandon for the Health Benefit Exchange Board. Laura, are you here? Thank you. I'm going to do a quick introduction, Laura. Your senator couldn't be here with us this evening, so thank you and welcome. So Laura is a retired healthcare executive and serial entrepreneur. I'm not sure what that is, but I'm sure you'll tell us. So you're a go-to-market expert, and you build new channels for products and organizational functions, and a fixer who turns around failing sales and organizations and fills organization gaps. Sounds like you're very, very talented, and we'll be happy to welcome you to the Health Benefit Exchange Board. Very good. So would you like to say a few words?
Much. So good evening, Chair, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Executive Nominations Committee, and the Appointment Secretary, Edwards. It is an honor and a privilege to be here and to be nominated by the governor. I'm joined by my husband of 30 years, who's I'm sure on his way up, and would like to give a shout out to my children. I'm a lifelong Maryland resident, with the exception of 3 years that I traveled around the world when I worked at GE. I currently live in Fulton, Maryland, in Howard County, and I grew up in Prince George's County, Maryland, in Hippo Hills. I am the proud daughter of Annie T. Randall, a hidden figure and a path-breaking innovator as the first Black statistician at NIH, who an Innovator Award is named after because of her tolerance of blistering racism. But the book that she did all the statistical modeling for, called Human Aging in the 1940s, is still in existence today. And I'm the proud daughter of William Sonny Randall, a Negro League Baseball Player Hall of Fame, who a decorated Negro League member and veteran of the Navy, who only had an 8th grade education, but is the smartest man that I know. He taught me grace, a strong work ethic, and to open the door for others when I am let in. I'm Laura Crandon, as you mentioned, and I have been a health plan executive for over 13 years with United Health, serving Medicare and Medicaid populations in network contracting, responsible for plan designs and innovations and quality for our most vulnerable communities and partnerships. I hold an MBA from Duke University, Fuqua School of Business, and a BS in Computer Science from the University of Maryland College Park, where I'm an active alum, speak, and provide financial support. I've also served as president of the River Hill High School Black Student Leadership Union Parent Association. I'm also a breast cancer victor, battling this, what I consider a chronic disease. And with this diagnosis, I was determined that I would take what I knew and my resilience that I learned as a child to help others. So I founded Touch for Life, which is a 501c3 nonprofit focused on breast health equity and ensuring that breast health equity is the norm and that the disparities in breast cancer outcomes are eliminated. We provide supportive services and include mental health support, research, and engage, educate, empower the community around this important issue. So I know healthcare from a payer perspective, as a caregiver to my parents for 15 years because they lived to be 96 and 97 years old, and as a patient. And I would bring all those perspectives to the Health Benefits Exchange Board. I'm the proud mother of 3 children, 2 biological sons who graduated from Maryland schools, and an adoptive mother of a 35-year-old who was my mentee when I first graduated college. But when her sister who raised her died of breast cancer, she started calling me mother, and I started calling her daughter. So we have 3 children now. My life is centered around service, and it's a focus that I developed growing up. It's my intent to bring this strong focus of integrity in healthcare, quadruple aim of access, affordability, and ultimately improving the health of Marylanders serving as also in the community, the chair of the Health and Human Services facet of the Columbia, Maryland chapter of the Links Incorporated, a life member and certified financial officer of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, as well as a patient advocate for many hospitals. It will be an honor to bring my holistic experience to serve the state of Maryland as a member of the Health Benefit Exchange Board. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be considered.
Thank you so much. And I think you bring great experience to this board, and it's a really important board that's doing great work, but you're going to be a real addition. Do I have any other questions for Ms. Crandon? No? Very good. Thank you very much. Senator Smith, I know you just sat down, but number one on the list is yours, if you don't mind. Ms. Aluk.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Mr. President, members of the committee. It's my pleasure to present Ms. Luke. Honored, who's been nominated to be a member of the Maryland Health Benefits Exchange Board. She's a graduate of the University of Hartford, where she obtained a bachelor's degree in biology. She then obtained her master's degree in public health with a concentration in maternal and child health from George Washington University. She has more than 7 years of experience working within the health benefit industry. She has been working with the Association of State and Health Officials for the last 3 years, and she came in as a senior analyst where she conducted various projects regarding breastfeeding, maternal mortality, and risk appropriate care. As she's progressed through the association, she got promoted to be director for the state and community engagement for the Association of State and Territorial Health Officials. And through this role, she provided direct management to many health-related projects. She's also has a stellar record representing women with their health needs, and I know that she'll excel as a member of the Maryland Health Benefits Exchange. So with that, it's my honor to present Ms. Luke.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Senator Smith. Thank you, Governor and team, for the nomination. My name is Aika Luke, as Senator Smith noted. I've been working in this space for the past 7.5 years, advocating and really elevating the voices of community and especially underserved folks. And so really in this space, just bringing my expertise, grateful for the opportunity and leveraging voices across not just maternal and child health, but also communities and spaces that don't always get an opportunity to be heard. So really happy to be a part of this committee and grateful for this opportunity and to work with folks and really roll up our sleeves and do the hard work that's needed for the population in Maryland. So thank you again.
Thank you very much. I just really want to comment on your work in maternal mortality and child health. It's so important, and we are falling further and further behind. So thank you for serving on this committee very much. Any other questions for Ms. Luke? Nope. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our vice chair is going to present Elizabeth Hazel for the Johns Hopkins University Police Accountability Board.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Executive Nominations Committee. Mr. President, I was very disappointed last week. We had a host of nominees to the Johns Hopkins Accountability Board, and not a single one of them was from the 40th District. But today there's light. I bring to you Miss Elizabeth Hazel, who will be an awesome addition to the Accountability Board. She's a member of the 40th District, employed by Johns Hopkins University, and most importantly, have a 3rd-year-old at Hamden Elementary School, one of the great public schools in the 40th Legislative District. It is with great pleasure that I introduce and nominate Mrs. Elizabeth Hazel.
Thank you very much. I appreciate this nomination and the privilege to work on this, for the opportunity to work on this board. My name is Elizabeth Hazel. I have been a Baltimore City resident since 2005 and an employee of Johns Hopkins University at the School of Public Health since 2007. I've been living in Hamden, where my daughter and my husband live as well. And I've been living there since about 2008. Adjacent to the Johns Hopkins University. And when I saw this posting for the Police Advisory Board, I thought this would be a really good opportunity to serve my community as both a member of the community and also as an employee of Hopkins as well. So thank you again for your consideration in this opportunity. Happy to answer any questions.
Do I have any questions for Ms. Hazel? You're getting off easy. Thank you very much for your service. Senator Watson. would you like to introduce Leon Bailey for the Maryland Public-Private Partnership Marketing Corporation Board of Directors?
Thank you and good afternoon, Madam Chair, colleagues. It is my great pleasure to introduce Mr. Leon Bailey for the position of Board of Directors, Maryland Public-Private Partnerships Marketing Corp. Mr. Bailey, of course, is a great resident of the 23rd District, holds a Bachelor's of Arts from Hampton University in Mass Media Publication. But I am most excited that he is currently the chairman of the Board of Directors for the Redevelopment Authority for Prince George's County. In that role, they're responsible for developing, redeveloping, revitalizing, and preserving targeted communities with an emphasis on communities within the Beltway in support of our county executives' priorities for community and transit-oriented development. This is the largest effort that Prince George's County has had going for some time, this $400 million effort. And it is critical. The critical piece of this is establishing these public-private partnerships. A licensed realtor, I'm proud to introduce to you and for your consideration, Mr. Leon Bailey.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. Thank you to the Governor Moore and Miller administration for their consideration for me to serve on the Public-Private Partnership Board. I would also like to thank my senator from District 23, Ron Watson, for his consideration and his support, the County Executive, Prince George's County, Angela Alsobrooks, and my friend and mentor, Thomas Graham, who has displayed willingness to better our community by bringing able and people with the right mindset to come to the table, to come together to find solutions. So thank you for everything, Tom. And I would also like to say thank you to my father, Leon Bailey Sr., who showed me the power of hard work, and Teresa Bailey, my mother, as I stand here before you, not just because of my hard work like my father, but I'm here because of the prayers of my mother. I also have to thank my biggest supporters here in Maryland, Bernita Bailey, my wife in the back, and my kids who cannot be today because they're doing their extracurricular activities for school. Layla Grace, my gymnast and Maryland State gymnast champion, and my son, Leon Bailey III, who is an avid tennis player that has us traveling across the state. My belief is many hands make light work, and I'm here today to be part of the process and put my hands to work for you. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Do I have any questions from our senators? No, sound like you bring great experience to the board. Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Next, we're going to have Senator Sinor introducing Christine Brooks Cropper for, again, the Maryland Public-Private Partnership Marketing Corporation.
All right, good evening, Madam Chair and committee. I'm here to introduce Ms. Christine Brooks Cropper of District 44 for the Maryland Public and Private Partnership Marketing Corporation. Ms. Brooks Cropper, not only was she a founder of the DC Fashion Foundation, she's also a freelance producer with Monumental Sports and Entertainment, which is the company that actually operates with the Washington Wizards and others. She has a MPA from the University of Delaware, as well as a bachelor's from Delaware State University, and is a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority. With that, I bring you Ms. Brooks Cropper.
Good afternoon, committee. I want to thank the Moore Miller administration for nominating me for this, as well as Secretary Tisha Edwards for considering me for this role. Senator Hayes, Senator Sidnor, for acknowledging the work that I've done over the years. I was recently the operations director for the coordinated campaign with the Maryland Democratic Party. So I had a chance to meet a lot of my senators and delegates that are currently in office, and that was a pleasure. With regards to my background to serve on the public-private partnership, I'm a serial entrepreneur as well. So I started my endeavors as an entrepreneur at 14 years old as a freelance model. By 19, I had a designer management company. By 25, I had the first fashion production company, and the Congressional Black Caucus was one of my biggest clients at 25 years old. By 3032, I created a whole initiative in Washington, DC to say fashion is an asset to economic development. I then got legislation passed to create the first Commission on Fashion Arts and Events and served as the chairperson for that for 4 years for Mayor Vincent Gray. Some of the work that I've done with regards to that of forming public-private partnerships, as you know, when you come from the creative economy, which is an asset that most states and local and federal governments sometimes overlook, they consider the culture and the arts, but they don't think about the business side of things. Well, I ended up forming the first public-private partnership for the Deputy Mayor of Economic Development in Washington, DC, between Macy's, the U.S. Department of Small Business Administration, the Deputy Mayor for Economic Development, and my nonprofit DC Fashion Foundation. It was the first of its kind to build out part of Macy's on the 4th floor in Washington, DC, to help emerging designers to go into what was called a fashion incubator and help them start their own businesses. So I look forward to serving in this role, as well as to bring my perspective from the creative economy and form those public-private partnerships for the state. And I thank you for having me and considering me.
Thank you very much. Thanks for explaining the serial entrepreneur. You've done an amazing job, Ms. Brooks. Thank you. Any questions at all from Ms. Brooks? No. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Is Senator Kagan here? I haven't seen her come in. There she is. Senator Kagan is going to introduce Shannon Prudhomme for the same board.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville, here delightfully and enthusiastically presenting to you Shannon Prudhomme. I had the chance to chat with her. Unfortunately, I didn't know her before, but she brings a wonderful background, and I have served on this board representing the Senate, so I know the importance of engaged, thoughtful, dynamic, and diverse voices in the room. So she was from Louisiana, went to an HBCU there, got a master's in public health, and has worked nationally and internationally for nonprofits, for community engagement, and has a wonderful record and quite a lot of eagerness to serve. I'm going to let her tell you more about about herself here. So thank you. Congrats, Shannon.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Kagan. Madam Chair, committee members, thank you for allowing me to have this space. Also to the Westmore Miller administration, thank you. I'm Shannon Prudhomme, born and raised in Lafayette, Louisiana, with a commitment and a focus and a passion for community. I was raised that way. I was nurtured that way, and I've continued to carry that throughout my 16-year career, 13 of which have been in the nonprofit industry. I have served in local roles in Texas, focused on regional health planning, specifically in the Ryan White Care System. I have also worked in North Carolina with global health organizations, and currently with Chorus International, focused on maternal reproductive health and newborn child health in parts of Asia, Africa, and Latin America. I take the spirit with me for the 32,000 nonprofit organizations that are registered in Maryland, focused on local grassroots efforts, statewide efforts, but also global diplomacy. And I'm proud to elevate their voices as a stakeholder in economic development for this community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I have any questions at all for this witness, this nominee? No, thank you very much. I am going to introduce Linda Thornton Thomas because your Senator Muse could not be here, but I think I have a letter, right? I do. So Linda, thank you. I'm going to read something from your senator before you start, and thank you for being here. Your senator writes that he's writing to offer full endorsement for Ms. Ricardo Alvarado. Do I have the right person? No, I don't. Oh, I'm sorry. Do I have one for Linda Thornton Thomas? Nope. I am very sorry. We have so many senators absent tonight, and we have one of his, but not yours. So I've taken a minute to look at your resume. Very impressive, by the way. Thank you. I see you have a Master's of Arts from Marymount, a Master of Science from Virginia Commonwealth, and a Bachelor of Science from Coppin State. Yes. But you bring to us that you're very highly qualified in business, an executive manager with the talent for identifying and resolving problems, maximizing productivity, and reversing negative sales trends, all which I think will be very important to this committee. So thank you for being here tonight.
And thank you for that introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Linda Thornton Thomas, and I am happy to be here. And I'm glad that I'm having this opportunity to listen to all the other nominees because I am extremely impressed. So just a little bit nervous here, wondering if I'm going to fit in, but thank you guys. You're doing a great job. I have worked with, I guess maybe over the last 12 years, 18 foundations, and within that opportunity, I've had a chance to work with private partnerships that have been working with a number of states. I work up and down the East Coast, and as well as some of the projects that I work with are in the West Coast. I am the president of the Prince George's County NAACP, and I'm excited about that because we are working on a number of projects that we are putting together as partners. And I'm happy to say that we've had some success. I've also worked with the U.S. Department of Labor as an education program specialist, as well as the U.S. Department of Education as a program developer and the Labor Department. So we've had lots of opportunities to develop projects, programs, and also we have worked with international groups as well as with our local groups. So I'm really excited about being nominated, excited about having this opportunity, and I am pleased that Governor Moore has offered me this opportunity. So I thank you so much, and are there any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Thornton Thomas. Do I have any questions?
Yes.
Oh, I do.
Thank
Senator
you,
Augustine?
Madam Chair. Listen, I just wanted to say thank you. It's great to see our branch president here and for the service that you do for Prince George's County, particularly as our branch president for the NAACP. So I really am proud and happy to support you for this.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate that. And I'm excited about the work that you've done. And so I will be nagging you as usual, you know, so all of that. So thank you all. Okay.
Thank you very much. And Senator, thank you for those comments. Next, we have Senator Wallstreicher, I think. There he is. And he's going to present Gideon Van Emden for the Morticians and Funeral Directors State Board of.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the committee. So excited to be before you to present my friend and constituent Gideon Van Emden. He is a member of the State Board of Morticians and Funeral Directors and is coming up before you for confirmation. I've known Gideon for many, many years, and I'm confident that his professional background and history of public service will make him a valuable addition to the board. Gideon currently serves as observer on the Jewish Funeral Practices Committee of Greater Washington and as co-chair of the Funeral Practices Committee of the Or Kodesh congregation in my legislative district in Chevy Chase, Maryland. Let me just say this honestly, Jewish funeral rites are very specific and very important to members of that community. Gideon's wealth of knowledge and familiarity with Jewish funeral practices will ensure that the Board of Morticians and Funeral Directors faithfully serves every citizen of Maryland. Gideon holds a bachelor's degree from University College London and several master's degrees from the University of Amsterdam and Brandeis University. He currently resides in Silver Spring and is an active member of social justice organizations in our community. I respectfully ask that the members of this committee support his confirmation to the Board of Morticians and Funeral Directors. Thank you, Madam Chair.
There's little I can add to that generous introduction. Only that I still, after being appointed for a few months now, I'm still tickled to be a consumer member of the Funeral Directors Board and look forward to representing, and I'm honored to represent all Marylanders' needs as they arise.
Thank you, Gideon. We appreciate it. Any other questions? No, thank you for your service. Senator Lamb, would you like to bring up Ronce Alford, Police Training and Standards Commission?
While Mr. Alford comes up to the podium, really pleased to be here to introduce Major Ronce Alford. For the record, Clarence Lamb, Senator District 12. Mr. Alford is a constituent of the district, but also has a long history of experience and work with the Maryland Transportation Authority's police police and law enforcement division. And so he's here to be appointed to the Police Training and Standards Commission. He has served with the Maryland Transportation Authority for over 22 years and has risen through the ranks with impressive positions such as the commander of bridges and the commander of tunnels, which I was not aware existed within that law enforcement force, but also has served in the patrol division, the special operations division, the BWI division. He has been very active in the law enforcement community as the president of the Maryland chapter of NOBLE, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, and has a degree from the University of Maryland in Masters of Business Administration, as well as a degree from the UMES with a Bachelor's of Science in Criminal Justice. And so it's a real pleasure to be able to introduce Major Alford for the Maryland Police Training and Standards Commission.
Thank you, Senator. Madam Chairman, Committee, I want to thank Governor Moore as well as Secretary Edwards for this nomination. He said everything I was going to say. So with that, originally from the Bronx, New York, where I grew up, and then I moved to Prince George's County, where I went to high school at Fordsville High School, graduated from high school, and actually while still in high school, joined the military at the end of 11th grade. So been in the military for I did 12 years in the U.S. Army, deployed to Iraq. As he said, with the Maryland Transportation Authority Police, 23 years, currently the commander of the patrol division. At one point, I was the commander of BWI Airport, which is in Anne Arundel County, which at one point was, I think, top 20 safest airports in the world at the time under my purview. Yes, I was the immediate past president of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives for the chapter in the state of Maryland. But we did great things for the community and we continue to do great things. As far as this board, obviously every board here is important, but I believe the Training Commission Board is one of the most important ones, especially right now, dealing with a lot of the different mandates that police law enforcement are going through from the last probably couple of years. This is huge as far as kind of what the officers are being taught, what police academies are being taught, what instructors are teaching, and how officers are working with the community. So I don't take this lightly, but I think this is probably one of the most important commissions. I'm proud to be nominated for that. Thank you.
Major, right? Major Alford?
That's correct, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for your service. And I think what you said is very, very important at this time. I happen to represent Anne Arundel County, which is where BWI is. And our police department has just done an amazing job with training. So I look forward to you taking that to all of the jurisdictions. Do I have any other questions for Major Alford? Oh, I do. I have two questions. So Senator Sinor, do you want to start?
All right, there we go. Thank you very much. No, this is actually not a question, but a statement. I had an opportunity to meet Mr. Alford a number of years ago through Noble, and I think this was a wonderful selection on the part of the governor.
Thank you.
With that, Senator Croson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Major Alford, I want to thank you for your military service. I want to thank you for your long law enforcement career and service. I absolutely agree, and I'm glad you actually said it in your opening statement, that this is one of the most important commissions at this time. Just a very brief question. How do you see in this time with all of our recruitment and our retention challenges, what you can bring to the board to improve that situation?
It's going to be an uphill battle. Obviously, no matter what agency, Maryland, any other state, recruitment and retention is the biggest thing, right? Probably every time you open up the paper, it's something about recruitment. So my thing is kind of meeting the recruits or the candidates where they are. That's a big thing. A lot of things we were so used to, hey, we're having a recruitment fair, come to us. Those days are over. We have to meet them from schools, colleges, businesses where they work at currently. High schools is a big one. Middle school, that's another one, but we just have to meet them where they are. That's the big thing. And kind of hear what they want. We always tell them what we want. We really need to hear what they want and why they want to serve. That's the biggest thing. They got to know why they want to serve to be a law enforcement officer. So that's something I think we need to clarify in recruitment. That's a big thing.
Well, thank you, and I welcome working with you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Senator Rosepep.
Thank you. You got my attention. We've been having a lot of hearings. A lot of agencies are having problems recruiting, and that was the most sophisticated explanation that I have heard this session about how we go about recruiting people we need in our government agencies. So look forward to working with you as well.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Senator James, would you like to present for the Public Information Act Compliance Board, Mr. Samuel Encarnacion? Probably got that wrong, but.
And I did too. So we agreed I can call him Sam for my
Okay.
introduction. Madam Chair, Mr. President, members of the committee, Mary Delaney James, representing Harford County District 34. It is indeed an honor for me to introduce Sam to you tonight. Sam has lived in Harford County in Bel Air, our county seat, since 1992 with his wife and now grown daughter, who, by the way, Sam told me, helped Bel Air High School win the Maryland State Championship in soccer at one point. As you can see, if you look at his resume, it's a considerably deep resume. He has a Bachelor of Arts from Texas in radio, television and film, which is a great major, but he did decide to go to law school also in Texas, but we're very lucky that his wife's career brought him to Bel Air. And for him, for the last 31 years, he has been a public defender in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and he's been there for 31 years, and he's now the first assistant in that position. Sam's connection to Pennsylvania stemmed from his father being a very respected minister in Lancaster until his passing. But now that his daughter's returned home after playing professional soccer for a couple of years in Europe, Sam wants to start giving back to Maryland. And his appointment to this Public Information Board, Sam tells me, is going to be just the beginning, and I think we're very lucky. In preparation for this appointment that he hopes to get, Sam has really been studying the Public Information Act, its history that dates back to 1970. It's a very important expansion in 2015. So I think that he's already, starting on the ground running. In conclusion, I am very delighted to present to you all Sam, and I hope he gets this appointment. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And Sam, you'll say your last name for us, right?
It's Encarnacion. It was, you said it correctly. Madam Chair, and to the committee members, thank you for the opportunity to be before you. It's always very humbling, and I want to thank you for that. I want to thank the Moore and Miller administration for the confidence for this recommendation. I also like to add just very briefly that I share the commitment, the legislative commitment and the executive commitment to guarantee the right of every Maryland citizen to obtain public records without unduly delay and undue cost. This is a right that is deeply embedded in our common law, and as stated, the enabling legislation was passed in 1970. The compliance board is rather new in 2015, but I think it was a right step to guarantee that right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I have any questions for this? No, thank you very much. Have a good evening. Senator Lewis Young, are you here? Don't tell me. I do not have Senator Lewis Young. Do I have Deborah Gardner? Deborah, I apologize. I did not know your senator wasn't going to be here, but thank you for being here, and tell us a little about your background and why you'd like to serve on the Public Information Compliance Board. Thank you.
To start, I filed a lot of Public Information Act requests in Maryland, going back to my the beginning of my career in civil rights and poverty law at Maryland Legal Aid, and continuing in the public interest organization that I work for now, and the other attorneys in my organization also use the Public Information Act quite regularly. As a member of the Marylanders for Open Government Coalition, I worked very hard to get the first major reform of the Public Information Act passed in 2015, and the expansion of the Compliance Board's jurisdiction through in 2021. So I look forward to seeing, while serving on the board, exactly how that board's new jurisdiction will work and can improve transparency and accountability in Maryland. I'm also very happy. I should certainly have thanked the committee and Governor Moore and Lieutenant Governor Miller as well, but I'm also very happy to have been nominated by Common Cause Maryland and the Press Association for the seat on the board reserved for a user of the Public Information Act.
Thank you. I see from your resume that you worked at Maryland Legal Aid for 8 years and you're currently at the Public Justice Center. So you bring great experience to the board and we appreciate your service.
Thank you. I actually worked at Legal Aid for 16 years. I had 2 different positions, but
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Well,
but I've been at the Public Justice Center for an awfully long time as well.
thank you. Do I have any other questions? No? Thank you very much. Senator Hershey, would you like to bring up Nevik Johnson?
There he is. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Senator Steve Hershey to present Nevik Johnson for the Public Information Act Compliance Board. It's not very often that you get to introduce somebody that you've known for so long, but Nevik and I have been friends for about 10 years now. First meeting on the campaign trail back when he was in high school, and worked together on many things at candidate forums, voter registration, polls and everything. But I've been very proud to watch, more importantly, his advancement in his career in education. He started off in Queen Anne's County high schools and helping out around there after school, and now is a teacher in Montgomery County. So Nevik's done an outstanding job. He's someone that Eastern Shore is certainly very proud of, although we don't get to see him as often as we'd like, but he's a great young man, and I wholeheartedly recommend him for this board. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Hershey, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Mr. President. I would like to thank Governor Moore and his administration and Secretary Edwards for the nomination. Maryland is a state that I am proud of. I love living in Maryland. I love serving in Maryland. In addition to what Senator said, I was on the school board in Kent County. I served there for 4 years as the youngest elected school board member, working with achieving our high rates, working with our dispute resolutions with my fellow board members. So again, I'm just happy to serve and looking forward to, I've done some research. I've watched additional meetings. I've started to study the manual and the regulations and all the changes that have happened. So I just can't wait to get started. And I'm joined here today on a special day for me, crossed Alpha Phi Alpha a year ago, which is our fraternity, my fraternity. And I'm joined with some of my fraternity brothers here as well. Thank you. I'll entertain any questions.
Do I have any questions for Mr. Johnson? Nope, no questions. Thank you.
Sometimes you have to read the room.
I'll get better at this.
I'm proud of you, brother, but you read the room.
At least it wasn't last month.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to mention to folks that have already appeared, if you'd like to leave, you're certainly welcome to. You don't need to stay for the whole evening, so please feel free. We will not consider you inconsiderate. Thank you very much. So I think I'm gonna
Welcome, Madam Chair.
I'm going to bring up Mr. Carroll for the Maryland Transportation Authority. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
How are you?
I'm sorry that your senator couldn't be here tonight,
No
but
worries.
I have a letter from your senator, Senator Ellis. He says, in my absence, I'm writing to express my support for the nomination and appointment of Mr. Dante Carroll to the Maryland Transportation Authority. Mr. Carroll has previously served on the Maryland Transportation Authority and is currently the Senior Vice President and Regional Manager for Long and Foster Real Estate for Northern Virginia and West Virginia. In this role, Mr. Carroll is responsible for regional sales and revenue growth, as well as production, profit, and recruiting goals. He's the Senior Vice President of Operations for Long and Foster Real Estate, where he oversees nearly $15 billion in annual sales and over 5,000 sales associates and nearly 70 branches. Mr. Carroll is regularly involved in human capital and project manager, making him an excellent fit for this role. Additionally, Mr. Carroll is highly skilled at leveraging organizational core strengths and resources, developing top-performing, highly competent direct reports, and strong client relationships. And from Senator Ellis, he says, I'm honored to support Mr. Carroll's nomination for the Maryland Transportation Authority.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, committee. Thank you for the opportunity to stand in front of you. I got to start by saying I feel like I have a bit of an imposter syndrome hearing some of the qualifications of the previous nominees relative to my own, and my hat's off to those of you who have been nominated for the work that you will hopefully do. Secondly, I could go about going through the resume and the things that I've done, but I think the most important thing for this committee to hear is that all I want to do is be a citizen of Maryland who does good for the citizens of Maryland. And in doing so, reappointment to the Transportation Authority allows me to do that. I want to thank Governor Moore for the opportunity to be reappointed and certainly for the opportunity to stand in front of this committee. And I think the one qualification that may not have been mentioned that uniquely qualifies me for this role with my tongue firmly planted in cheek is that on this committee sit two members of the Baltimore Polytechnic Institute Alumni Association, which makes this committee an exceptional committee with regard to its judgment. So with that stated, I would also amend Senator Hershey's comments about a longstanding friendship, and that Senator Charles Sidnor and I have been friends for the better part of 34 years now. So that probably makes us the longest standing friendship in the room. So I just want to one up you there, sir. That being stated, I humbly appreciate the opportunity that you have given me to express my re-nomination or reappointment, I should say, and just thank you for the work that you do on behalf of the citizens of Maryland as well. With that stated, I conclude my comments.
One, two, three. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Appreciate it. I think the Senate President have a question.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and thank you, Mr. Carroll, for your service and willingness to serve. And, you know, there's not been a lot of time, so this may be a question that may be something to follow up with later. But given the recent news of the P3 of the 495 American Legion Bridge 495, with the concessionaire leaving, it's likely that the Transportation Authority will have a bigger role potentially moving forward. Do you have any thoughts about that project, one way or the other?
My thoughts are simply, I think that if that opportunity presents itself, there should be a full and fair vetting of whomever throws its hat in the ring for the project. And I think that I can't speak for other members of the board, but I would certainly feel comfortable in saying that we all understand the responsibility, the enormous responsibility that goes along with that selection, and we'll do our due diligence to make sure that we are again serving the interest of Marylanders at its highest and best use in that space.
Thank you.
Senator Sidnor.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say I've known Mr. Carroll since 1988. We were in high school. We graduated high school together. He was my class president. And he's always been an upstanding person and a hard worker. And I'm excited to see him up there this evening. Had no idea that he had served on this transportation board, and got on him tonight for that. But I think this is another good choice.
Thank you.
Excellent. Are there any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for your service. Next, we will have Samuel Sneed, and we will hear from Madam Chair to introduce Mr. Sneed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So this is our last nominee for the Maryland Transportation Authority. And I have a letter from Senator Simonero, who could not be here tonight. And he says, with many years of experience with both federal and local Department of Transportations in his current position serving as Director of Anne Arundel County Office of Transportation, I believe Mr. Sneed would be a great asset to the MDTA and is deserving of this appointment. And I want to agree with Senator Simonero. I've worked with Mr. Sneed in Anne Arundel County, and I'm very delighted to see his appointment. So thank you, Mr. Sneed.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate. There we go. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate those kind words. I also want to thank the Governor Moore Miller administration for appointing me to this position. Unfortunately, I don't have an audience with me. I just had well, I didn't. My wife had a child and she couldn't come, and he's about 8 weeks old, so she's doing the harder work. Okay. But I do want to talk a little bit about my experience in transportation. I've worked at the federal and local level throughout the country, and I really want to bring my expertise to the MDTA board. I've seen a variety of projects be implemented and managed implementation and operations myself. So I bring a wealth of knowledge to the MDTA board, and I really look forward to collaborating with everybody. And I want to make sure that I represent Marylanders well on the board, and I want to use my technical expertise to do that. I thank you for your time.
Do I have any questions for Mr. Sneed? We do. Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Same question and sort of maybe just a slightly different. Do you have any perspective? I mean, certainly you're an enormous transportation experience. Do you have any thoughts about whether the project should be managed by the state or should be considered as a P3? Is that something that you have any perspective on?
Well, typically, whenever I endeavor to begin on any transportation project, we perform a pretty in-depth analysis first, and then we work on a collaborative approach as a board to make decisions. So I cannot make a decision, of course, here today in front of you all, because I'm one of those people who likes to analyze a lot of data before I make a call in front of all of you folks. But I will make a technical decision based on my experience and collaborate with others on the board, of course, and we'll come to a conclusion that's best for the state of Maryland.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sneed. I don't see any other questions, so thank you for being here tonight. Nice to see you.
Thank you all for your service.
I have. We do have this one. Okay. So next we have on the Venture Fund Authority, Mr. Ricardo Alvarado. Thank you. I'm going to read a letter from your senator. He says, I'm writing, this is from Senator Anthony Muse. I'm writing to offer my full endorsement for Mr. Ricardo Alvarado, who has been nominated for governor to serve in the state government in the appointed position with the Maryland Venture Fund Authority. Mr. Alvarado is a well-respected community leader who will continue to be a voice for the 26th district and the constituents of Maryland. In addition, Mr. Alvarado has years of professional leadership in the financial and technology industry, and he embodies tenacity and sound judgment, which will enable him to be a great asset to the Maryland Venture Fund. In closing, thank you for your consideration and favorable nomination of Mr. Ricardo Alvarado. So thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. And thank you to Senator Muse, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, President, members of the committee, and Secretary Edwards. First, I want to thank the Moore-Miller administration for the opportunity to serve the state of Maryland. In this particular capacity, it is truly an honor to be involved in the innovation and job creation here in Maryland. I have a background in technology, financial services, and entrepreneurship, and I have recently led 4 different venture-backed startups. And prior to that, almost 8 years at Goldman Sachs and 2 years in management consulting. I have 2 degrees from Carnegie Mellon University, a Bachelor of Science in Entrepreneurship, an MBA, and also a law degree from the University of Pittsburgh, which I completed concurrently with the MBA. I'm also a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, 20 years next month. Reading the room. I have taught entrepreneurship at Carnegie Mellon University in Qatar, marketing at the University of California, Santa Barbara. And I want to thank my family and friends who are all watching the live stream across the globe, from here in Maryland to Puerto Rico and even in Qatar. Your support has allowed me to be here today, and I am eternally grateful. Thank you to the committee for the opportunity, and thank you for your support.
And do I have any questions for Mr. Alvarado? Thank you for your service. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Senator Kelly is here with us for the first time, our newest senator, and she is going to introduce Vishal Amin, and again for the Venture Fund Authority.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. I'm very excited to be here, and especially excited to be here to introduce Mr. Vishal Amin, who is right here behind me. He's a really wonderful guy, and he has decades of experience in the aerospace industry. He's also a member of the Maryland Aviation Commission, but most importantly for this position, he has experience raising capital for a startup. He has a ton of government relations experience, and please note at the bottom of his resume, he's a veteran of the United States Air Force. He's also a really nice guy, and he's going to be a huge asset to the Venture Fund Authority. So I strongly recommend him. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Senator, and thank you to the committee for considering my nomination today. You have my resume, so I'm not going to really get into that. However, I've been a lifelong public servant from U.S. Air Force to just government side, been both on a private sector as well as government side in the leadership roles, and being serving on the Maryland Aviation Commission for past 6 years. And I look forward to bringing my collective experience to the Maryland Venture Fund. As Senator mentioned, I do have a lot of experience in advising a lot of startup companies globally, as well as having worked in a startup company and being part of capital raising side of the house. I'm looking forward to really bringing my collective experience to the Venture Fund Authority. So with that, thank you again for considering my nomination, and thanks to Moore Miller administration for nominating me today.
Thank you very much. Do I have any questions for this nominee? Nothing. Thank you very much. We look forward to working with you. Senator Kelly, you get to do Ms. Ma.
Yes, the Fighting 16th District has two nominees for the Venture Fund Authority, and I would really encourage you all to confirm the nomination of Bay Ma. Bay, as in the Chesapeake Bay, she loves the state of Maryland. She has experience that really blends business, science, and healthcare. Decades of experience in business development, specifically for life sciences and biotech. You can see she has a master's in chemistry, but also an MBA. She served as a mentor for the Maryland Tech Council and also a member of the Rockville Economic Development Board. She's also my neighbor in North Bethesda, and she's really an extraordinary person. She's going to be a huge asset as well to what is shaping up to be a wonderful Maryland Venture Fund Authority. And with that, I will introduce you to Ms. Ma.
Dear Senator Kelly, thank you so much for your kind introduction and support. Thank you. And good evening, Madam Chair, Honorable Executive Nominations Committee and Committee Member, Vice Chair, and President. Good evening. It is truly my honor to stand here today and to be nominated as the board member for Maryland Venture Fund Authority. And it feels like home because this is my son's birthplace, and he's almost going to be 17 years old. So I was living in Anne Arundel County, long time Marylander, right after my grad school in North Carolina, and I started my first job in Maryland, and then my current job still in Maryland. But between 2001 and now, I have been working as research scientist and in the standard setting, certification space for pharmaceuticals, medical devices, digital health, and life sciences space. These are important sectors for us because Maryland, it is Maryland time to shine. And I truly believe Maryland, it is the next epicenter and to be the life sciences and the biotech space nationwide and internationally. So I have worked at USP, US Pharmacopoeia for about 8 years, Mela Toledo. These are all global organizations, but all based in Maryland. And we need more organizations like that, not just industry, but NGOs in the public health space, standard space, as well as the venture space. And we all know the past weekend, the big news about SVB. We don't want that happen here because that really, really ruined our startup community. So the past few years, I have been working very closely with our startup companies in the biotech and life sciences space through Maryland Tech Council, Rockville Economic Development Inc. And now I'm on the board for George Washington University for the students entrepreneurship, especially in life sciences and healthcare. So I'm truly honored. Did I forget to say thank you to our new administration, Moore and Miller, for this nomination? But I am ready to serve our people here, to serve our communities here, and to serve our entrepreneurs here, to make Maryland the epicenter of life sciences and biotech. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ma. Do I have Senator Lamb?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to, I've known.
Thank you so much, Senator Feldman and Lamb. Thank you. Thank
Ms.
you.
Ma, thank you. We'll look forward to having you on the Venture Fund. Perfect. Thank you. I have Senator Klassmeyer. You're going to introduce Ms. Asha Jefferson. And I also see that we have in the audience our delegate Ben Barnes, Chair of Appropriations. Nice to see you, and some other members of the Workman's Comp Commission. Thank you all.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Vice Chairman, Senate President. I would just like to say that I've just met Aisha last week, but I feel like I've known her all my life. I mean, we had so much to talk about. She's got a stellar law background, and you all have that in your notes, I'm sure, in your resumes. And she, as you can see, no, how you want to say it? No, all the folks from the Workers' Comp Commission are here almost. So what else can I say is they really have a lot of trust in her and a lot of faith in her. And currently she's working for IWIF. So I know she has a great background. So I'm going to let her introduce everybody. So thank you.
Thank you. So thank you so much, Senator Klassmeyer, for that wonderful introduction. Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Senate President, and other distinguished committee members. Thank you so much for having me here. I would also like to especially thank Governor Moore and Secretary Edwards for this appointment and this incredible opportunity to serve the citizens of Maryland. Becoming a workers' compensation commissioner allows the continuation of my public service commitment. In that role, one is charged with fairly and adequately compensating injured workers consistent with the law. And as Senator Klassmeyer said, for the past 10 years, I have exclusively worked in the workers' compensation comp community and had the privilege to travel over this entire state, meeting with various employees, employers, and attorneys while litigating various issues. If I am confirmed, I pledge to discharge my role with impartiality, compassion, and lots of enthusiasm. And as she said, I have a lot of supporters here with me today. I have my wonderful parents who are sitting behind me, both my siblings, my sister, my older sister, my younger brother, my two daughters, lots of friends, and distinguished members of the Workers' Compensation Commission. So thank you so much, and I'll offer or answer any questions anyone has.
President Ferguson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and very much look forward to supporting your nomination. I also would be remiss if I didn't introduce my own constituent, Ivan Bates, the state attorney for Baltimore, who's here supporting your nomination as well. So
yes, a very good friend.
Yes, exactly.
He's sitting in the back.
Right. Excellent. Thank you.
I have to say, since we are reading the room, I have to say that I'm also a Delta, and there are many Deltas here. And one of my friends who drove from New Jersey, my line sister. So yes, thank you very much.
Asha, would you like to introduce the rest of the commissioners that are here with you tonight?
Absolutely. So we have Acting Chair Quinn. We have
I'm putting you on the spot.
Alan Kittleman, Commissioner Kittleman, I'm just going to say Commissioner, and then Commissioner Metz, Commissioner Schad, Commissioner O, Commissioner Martin, Commissioner Forrester. We have retired, but has been recalled, Commissioner Webster. And I believe that's all the commissioners. Yes. Thank you so much.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Asha, we haven't had a chance to meet, but obviously you come from great pedigree. We all from Baltimore know your dad, Mr. Wilhelm, who has extraordinary service to the citizens of Baltimore and here in Maryland. So thank you for the nomination. We look forward to supporting you.
Thank you so much. My dad will be very happy you shouted him out. Okay, let me say one thing, because my mother did tell me that I had to thank her especially. So thank you to my mother.
Thank you. So again, if you've appeared and you'd like to leave, you're welcome to. But I welcome all of you that have been here tonight. Thank you. Finally, we're going to bring up, I think I've lost this. Yes. Just give it a minute. Okay, quietly, we still have one more nominee. Quietly, please.
She did bring it. She did bring it.
Here, like that?
She did bring it true. Oh my goodness.
She was a nervous.
She cleared the
She works for my daughter. Vice President. She cleared the room. Okay. We have, boy, that was a lot of people. We have one more person before we are going to have two bill hearings. So I'm going to introduce Maria Martinez. Maria's here. Thank you. She's an accomplished business and government professional for more than 25 years, born and raised in Northeast Baltimore City. Maria is a respected community leader and philanthropist. She's a proud daughter of hardworking immigrant parents who instilled a strong work ethic and love for Latino heritage within her, which she applies to everything she does. We have a lot of letters of support for Maria, including our Latino caucus. So welcome, Maria. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you so much, and good evening, Madam Chairwoman, Vice Chair, distinguished members of the Senate Executive Nominations Committee, and fellow Marylanders. I would like to take a moment to recognize and thank my husband who's joined me this evening in this important day, along with friends, families, and colleagues that are live stream here to support me in spirit. I feel them and I appreciate that. It's a privilege to be here with you in consideration of my nomination to serve in the Maryland Stadium Authority. I am grateful to Governor Moore and to Secretary Edwards for their support and consideration for this honor. Over the past 2 decades, I've had the opportunity to be confirmed and serve our state with distinction in various roles, including the Board of Review for the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, the Maryland Auto Insurance Fund, and Chair of the Governor's Commission on Hispanic Affairs. It is an high honor to have been asked by Governor Westmore to serve Maryland and also represent the Latino community as a proud Latina, Baltimore native, and a lifelong Orioles fan. With over 25 years of executive management experience in entrepreneurship, and as a Latina, I bring a unique perspective of the challenges and barriers to entry that are faced by women and minority-owned businesses. In view of this, I am committed to help ensure that the Maryland Stadium Authority is a leading example of the governor's firm commitment for women and minority business enterprise representation. Throughout Maryland's rich and diverse culture, when our teams compete, when events are held in our theaters, convention centers, arenas, racing facilities, and stadium, we come together as Marylanders, irrespective of our socioeconomic, racial, and ethnic backgrounds. I thank you again for your time, and I truly invite you for the opportunity to answer any of your questions. I am here to be transparent, to be vulnerable, to show my integrity. I'm here to tell you my story as well. This is not my story. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Martinez. Senator Lamb, first question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Ms. Martinez, for being here. You obviously saw the story this morning in Maryland Matters, and I wanted to get your side of the story in terms of why you don't think the concerns that were brought up reflect where you are now in terms of your ability to carry out the duties on the Sanum Authority Board.
Absolutely. I really thank you for that opportunity to share. My story is difficult. It's challenging, but it's also one of resilience and victory because of people around me who supported me and gave me opportunities along the way. Mr. Zorzi, it's a pleasure to meet you. I didn't have the opportunity to meet you in person, but we did chat, and it's nice to meet you. When I was phoned by Mr. Zorzi, I was very honest and transparent with him about my story. I am born and raised in Baltimore. My parents are immigrants. They're since deceased. My father was an iron worker. My mother was a retired diplomat. When Mr. Zorzi asked me the simple question about, you're not really from Baltimore unless you know what high school you go to, I can't even answer that question, just like say, a school. I was promised to marriage at 12. I was married at 14. I went to South America, Colombia, and lived there. I had a child 4 years later. I was here back in the United States. I tried to finish college and go to college and work at the same time. Unfortunately, in my second marriage, I survived domestic violence, and I survived domestic violence. In the story, there's just a very small line that says that I kind of say that it's partly to blame of my situation. And it is to blame of the situation, unfortunately. So with my ex-husband, there was a veterinary center that my family put everything we had into, and we built it. It was successful. It was wonderful. And the domestic violence aspect was secret and no one knew. And unfortunately, one day he did have an abrupt attack on me and with all of our employees. And that's when it became public. And at that time, I had no choice. It was the employees that brought that to light. Katie O'Malley, when I met her as a new prosecutor, became my voice because I didn't have one. I didn't know how to express what had just happened to me. She prosecuted him. And then from there, he weaponized finances because we owned the clinic 50% together. I was then found in a bankruptcy of not personal, but a bankruptcy that had to do with the business only. And he then put it in bankruptcy reorganization so that the trustee could fire me. The trustee fired me. I lost my parents' home, which Mr. Zorzi asked me about that, my 35 years of financial challenges, which I get it, but that was the beginning of my financial challenges. That marks the moment, the impact. And it was historically after that because of the residual effects of what had happened. Unfortunately, the trustee and my ex-husband did have, they worked together for quite a few years together. And as I grew into my own business, as the support of the United Way, of the House of Ruth, of incredible people around me who lifted me and helped me create my company, Respira, which was a respiratory home care company that took care of patients like my father. I was very successful. We did great work. The majority of our business was the military. However, I still had this bankruptcy from the company pending because it wasn't closed. Bankruptcies are done within 1 to 2 years. This one went on for 5 to 6 years. It wasn't until I had the means and I had the reputation at that point and people cared about what's going on here. I had a banker, President Augie Cesera, who took a chance on me with Maryland, with M&T Bank and gave me a line of credit despite of all that because he saw what we were doing. And I'm forever indebted to him for believing in me. But during that time, Irv Walker, who was a partner at Saul Ewing, took interest and said, I need to help you. This has to stop. You're not going to be able to grow your business because this bankruptcy, he goes, I haven't seen this and I'm a trustee and it's gone on for so long. He went in, had it reopened. And then from there, the trustee was taken off, a new trustee was put in and it was closed and I was free. So that's why it didn't end when the divorce happened. It didn't end because he did not allow it to end. So years later, doing phenomenal, doing incredible work that I'm very proud of, taking care of working with Walter Reed, helping to create the sleep medicine program for the military. Very proud of those efforts. We were doing wonderful, EBITDA of 2.5 million. We have 70, I have 70 awards and recognitions, and many of those also include the company. Unfortunately, during an administration change, things changed. And TRICARE, unfortunately, which was the insurance carrier, of which I basically had 85% of our business was TRICARE, was cut quite a bit. And I'll give you an example. If I bought a machine for $300 and I could bill it for $1,000, so it was the machine plus the therapy side of it, of respiratory therapy, I would get paid over a few months. And we're good, because by that time my bill's due to my vendor, I'm able to pay my vendor, and it's all good. With the administration change, the cuts happened and they moved that to 15 months where I would then be able to get my reimbursement. 15 months. And an additional cut, which was about a total of 80%. No one can sustain business. At that point, I made the decision, a very hard decision. I spoke to one of my dearest mentors and friends, Ted Venetoulis. He had been through this. He was also a retired banker, and he had shared his story with me. And he said, Maria, there is nothing to be ashamed about. That does not define who you are. That is a situation that happened, and you're going to get through this. And that is why I was then encouraged, and I said, okay, we're going to have to do this. And I took 1 year to make sure our employees had jobs, to make sure our patients were taken care of, to close our operations across the country. We were on military bases. And that's what occurred. I did share all of this with Mr. Zorsi. I did explain that to him in great detail, the same way I'm telling you. And that is what happened. I had to go into personal bankruptcy because I guaranteed, this happens to businesses, unfortunately, everywhere, limited access to capital for women and minority businesses is almost impossible. And especially when you have an issue where your revenue source has been depleted, it's been cut. And this is the way, unfortunately, that the country is facing healthcare in every facet. It doesn't matter what kind of healthcare you're giving or providing, this is what's occurring. And that's also something, we'll get onto that because that's another one of my belly puppets, so to speak. But that's kind of the story. And I was able to get past through that, discharge the bankruptcy, and move forward. And in addition to that, I was supporting and helping someone that I really wanted to encourage and believe in, because I thought when I finish Respira, I'd like to have a little shop. So I went ahead, and before, as I was ready to close Respira, I took that year, I invested in a business, all the funding and did everything. It was my idea, and brought someone on. And unfortunately, where you read that part about the masks, which is unbelievable to me, that has to do with the movers who were outside. It was 32 degrees and they had hats on, and some put a mask on because it was cold outside. When I took that action, it was done with the guidance of the attorney. I hired a security company. We notified the police. We did everything because at that point we weren't able to stop the situation where monies, an account had been created and monies were being diverted. So I don't speak often about it because it's something that happened. I've made one statement on it because, to be honest with you, it's something that occurred. The court system took care of it. They were fair. Everything was done properly. And that's where we are. It's the salaciousness, unfortunately, is created by other people. But I just needed to clarify all that because it's very painful for me. And if this had been a different hearing, I've been before the body several times in my career, and it's always been nothing but support. And it just is very difficult to be defined through a lens that has just information that has been obtained in public records. And I welcomed him. I gave him resources to talk to, people to speak to. And then I have to tell you, I also said to him, I said, if you're giving me this unfortunate platform, I wish you turn it into a very public, opportunity to show resilience and to show how one turns things into something positive. And I said, would you please write about when I was co-chair of 211 Maryland with United Way and Verizon and helped to get that launched here in Maryland, which is now successful national organization that helps thousands of people. I asked, can you please discuss the work I did with predatory lending within the insurance world with Maryland Auto Insurance Fund and changing those laws that affected a single mother like myself that had nothing at the time, no credit, and couldn't get even insurance to get my car to go to work. I said, would you mind please having a discussion about the address confidentiality that I worked with Secretary Mary Kane to get that to pass, to protect the identity of women and men who are in domestic violence, and they have a restraining order, and then they're found and hurt or murdered. I asked him if he would please, can you please share those stories as well? So I'm sorry, I know it's very belabored, but I really need you to know from me what happened and how I navigated through it with support of wonderful people. And I hold my head up high. And I'm sorry that domestic violence was not the center of the story, that it was a very short sentence in the story. That is what I'm very sorry about. Other than that, I stand before you and I appreciate the time and I welcome any additional questions.
Senator Croza.
Thank you, and I'm glad, Ms. Martinez, we had the opportunity to hear the full story. As far as, maybe once you were asked that question by the reporter, that could have been maybe a time to come to the committee then before the story. But I'm coming at this from a position of questions from my own constituents. And having served in the executive branch at both the state and federal level, you have an idea of which are the most prestigious appointments. And Maryland Stadium Authority is right up there, not just because it's, quote, a prestigious appointment, but it's one of the few agencies that can do its own procurements. That we've got billions of dollars that are issued by the Maryland Stadium Authority and contracts awarded, the 1.2 billion for the two stadiums. So when our constituents raise concerns about a challenged fiscal history and background that's being applied to an appointment to one of the most important and prestigious in the state, those are legitimate questions. And they ask the question, are there others that didn't face these challenges that might have been better nominees? They ask those questions. You should know that. So when the questions that are being asked, it's not to personally challenge you, it's to put it in context of this specific appointment and the fact that it's not your normal board or commission. It is at a different level. So I think that's, if you can understand when our constituents ask us, and I think part of it, is what you can do to reassure the public, to have confidence in this governor's appointment here. So that's where we come at these questions. And you have shared your story, and I am sorry for what you've gone through personally. I'm sorry for what you've gone through financially, and I know my colleagues share that. But there's also, we're held accountable by our constituents who are asking questions, you know, in an appointment like this, dealing with these billions of dollars of bonds and issued by the Maryland Stadium Authority and the contracts. How can we have the assurance that we need as constituents?
Absolutely, and thank you for that question. Well, I think Maryland has amazing, a talent pool of people. So I that's number one. I think I'm very blessed that I'm considered one of those people that could serve in this role. I have worked on boards and commissions. I have worked also in the business sector with small budgets all the way to multi-million-dollar budgets, helping create budgets even for the government. I think if we did take a poll of stories around, Annapolis, people have had challenges, unfortunately, financial challenges. My challenges, have root causes, and I don't make excuses for anything. I simply, it's situations that have occurred, and I think I've handled them and tackled them head on. And that's one thing. The other thing is that I have chaired organizations, committees that have held as budget and finance chair for several organizations, including the Maryland Auto Insurance Fund. I am fiscally responsible. There's also a team of people, subject matter experts around you that support you. It's not like there's one person making that decision. So it's about a team effort. It's about the people that are there at the table, and that the best interest is of the organization. And in this case, it's the state of Maryland. So I do understand completely, but I've also been here for over 20 some years and have proven who I am. And this would be a completely different conversation, unfortunately, if my story was not taken into a context that was very unfortunate. I hope I answered your question.
Do I have any other questions? Any other comments from our senators? Thank you very much for sharing your story. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity.
So we are going to take the vote on tonight's nominees, and then we have two bill hearings. If you looked at your agenda, you'll see there's two bill hearings that will complete and vote tonight. So my vice chair has a nomination to make.
May I ask a question?
Yes,
before we vote? There was one nominee before we voted, and I probably should have asked the question, but I wanted to ask before we voted, that I noticed was on their resume, at least, were from out of state, from Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
I think he worked there, but he lives in Maryland.
Okay, so that's been clarified. On his resume, it had a Lancaster, Pennsylvania address.
I think that was his business address. When he testified tonight, he talked about that. Right? Yeah.
Ready?
We're ready, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the Executive Nominations Committee make a favorable recommendation for numbers 1 through 18, as well as all of the statewide nominations, with the exceptions of number 13, number S14, number S16, number S92, and S69. Absolutely.
Can I interrupt just 1 minute? It's because their dates are not clear when they're serving. That's why those 4 S's are being held. It's about the date of their appointment. The S's are the ones that do not.
Yeah, they don't have to appear to us. So I'll repeat those numbers. So number 13, S14, S16, S69, and S92.
Senator Lamb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to also separate out number 3 for purposes of recusal.
Okay, so we're going to amend the motion to include separating out number 3. Thank you. Okay, do I have a second? Second. Do I have discussion? Thank you. Any discussion? Senator Reedy, your light's on?
So we're moving all 18 right now?
No, he said he held number 3 and number 13.
Okay, thank you. I missed that. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. 3 and 13, and then the 4 S's that we need to clarify their terms. So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion?
Oh, there's 19. All right. So
let's do it one more time.
I'm gonna do it one more time just for the road. All right. Madam Chair, members of this committee, I move for a favorable report on numbers 1 through 19, as well as all of the statewide nominations, with the exceptions of number 3, number 13, S14, S16, S69, and S92.
Excellent. And I had a second. Do I have the same second? Thank you, Madam Chair. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of that motion, please? Any opposition to the motion? Thank you. And now let's make a nomination for number 3.
Yes.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I move that we make a favorable report on number 3.
Second.
And we have a motion and a second for number 3. All in favor? Aye. We have 1 recusal, Senator Lamb being recused. Thank you. So that ends our discussion for executive noms, but we're going to do the 2 bills. And we are going to them tonight because crossover's coming. So the first bill is Senate Bill, let me get them in the right order here. Senate Bill, I don't have 6, I know, I only have the fiscal note for 626. I'm looking for the bill. Okay. All right, so in Senate Bill, here we go. Senate Bill 626 is the Healthcare Services Cost Review Commission, and the sponsor is Senator Lamb. Would you like to explain your bill? Thank you.
All right. Members of the committee, pleased to be here, Senator in District 12, Clarence Lamb, to present Senate Bill 626. As many of you know, Maryland has a very unique hospital reimbursement and rate setting system, and core to that is really the Health Services Cost Review Commission. This commission has very broad authorities, able to assess fees on healthcare facilities and also to set rates on hospitals. And while the work of the commission has been integral to the cost containment here in the state when it comes to our hospitals, the commission does have significant influence on the healthcare marketplace in Maryland, and through its nature of being able to set reimbursement for private healthcare facilities. So in essence, it determines the hospital rates across the entire state, which has huge implications and also budget significance too. It really underpins the unique waiver that we have with the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services for global budgeting. And it's also been very heavily involved in the MD-PCP, the Maryland Primary Care Program, to help integrate primary care into that global budgeting system. Currently, the commissioners are appointed by the governor without Senate confirmation. Historically, the commissioners have taken their job very seriously, given the responsibilities that are just enumerated above. And the Senate confirmation would really be additive to this process to reflect the importance of the commission and the level of authority that it has over the state's healthcare system. The Senate currently confirms gubernatorial appointments for boards that oftentimes have less authority than the HSCRC. And these include boards and commissions like the Maryland Healthcare Commission, the Maryland Community Health Resources Commission. You just heard tonight from the Maryland Health Benefit Exchange Board. Those folks come before the Senate for Advise and Consent, as well as the Cannabis Commission, the Medical Cannabis Commission. And so the authority really here is over almost 4 dozen hospitals across the state, including specialty and psychiatric hospitals, which have a combined revenue of more than $16 billion. And so there's a lot of significance here when it comes to managing our rate setting. If we were to lose the global payment waiver that we have with the federal government, our state hospitals could lose more than $1 billion in lost Medicare reimbursements. And so for all of those reasons, I think given the significance and authority of this commission, really would encourage a favorable vote on this bill. The Maryland Hospital Association has also submitted a letter of support, which I think is in your packet, or I'm happy to provide further copies if you'd like that as well. Happy to take any questions.
Do we have any questions for the sponsor of the bill? I have a question, Senator. I noticed, and it's in the legislation now, of the 7 members, 4 shall be individuals who do not have any connection with management or policy of any facility. Do you think that's still a good?
I think so. I think the current composition and makeup of the board has functioned very well.
Okay.
They've tried to be cognizant of the different stakeholders that are involved in kind of the rate setting process. And that's why they generally have a provider on board, on the commission rather, to be able to lend that input. They have hospital input, they have patient input. But even over the last couple of years, there have been periods within the commission where they've had difficulty maintaining a quorum because multiple members were from the same hospital system, for example, and thus had to be recused. So Senate confirmation in a way would help serve as a double check to ensure that the commission is well balanced.
Thank you. Do you have other questions? Senator Croza?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And
sorry.
Senator Dr. Lamb, I want to thank you for this bill, especially given the challenges right now in our healthcare systems. I just wanted to ask you about the effective date, whether it should be emergency or move it up to June.
So I defer to the committee on that. I think the intent was to have the bill go through the normal process, but I think if there's the will for urgency to the bill, certainly open to amendment to make an emergency bill. But I'll defer to the will of the committee on that.
I think I don't know if the bill says or the fiscal note says it, that this will be as the terms come up for renewal. Like, we're not going to do this immediately and reappoint 7 people. It'll be as each one comes up for renewal. So I'm not sure that we need for it to be emergency.
And we won't be here.
October 1st, we couldn't do the advice and consent.
Well, there's always interim appointments, and we do advice and consent when we come back in January. Thank you, Senator. Senator Vice Chair, Senator Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Senator Lamb. I agree. I think this is a great one. Maybe not the next one, but I think this one is a step in the right direction. I did not even know that this board did not come to the consent. I wonder, is there anything that happened that brought this to your attention, why you brought it for us here today? I think it's a great bill.
No, I don't think there are any specific examples that highlighted the impetus for this bill. It was really just a recognition when you look at the authority and the responsibility that this commission has. It's certainly very significant and important. And compared to, looking at these other commissions that also fall within similar jurisdiction, it just seemed like it was an imbalance here. And that's why I brought this forward.
Thank you, Senator Griffith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it just came out in your last answer. I was going to ask, I know that several of the commissions that we have, our health-related commissions, do come through this process, CHRC and others. So were you trying to make this consistent with the other commissions?
Right.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, any other questions? Do I have a motion for the bill?
I'll move favorable.
Thank you. We got a motion and a second. Should we call roll? Is it typically we call roll for a bill?
Oh, I got it right.
Charity's going to call.
Senator Augustine?
Yes.
Senator Carozza?
Yes.
Senator Feldman?
Yes.
Senator Ferguson?
Yes.
Senator Griffith. Senator Hershey. Senator James. Senator King. Senator Lamb.
Yes.
Senator McCray. Senator McKay is absent. Senator Reedy, excuse me. Senator Rosapet. Senator Smith.
Yes.
Senator Sidnor. Senator Zucker.
Yes.
Senator Hayes.
Yes.
And Senator Bidle.
Yes. The bill passes 17-0. Thank you. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Senator King.
I'm just trying to understand why this bill came here and didn't go to a committee. Explain that to me.
This is a standing committee, and this is what
That's
we
how it
do, our
goes.
jurisdiction.
I never heard us have a bill before.
I think, there was one time last year we were going to have a bill and then it was withdrawn.
Okay.
So,
All right, thank you.
Senator Feldman.
Have you settled on a committee dinner party end of session yet? What?
Please. Okay, thank you all. Now we have our last item for the evening is Senate Bill 630, Department of Transportation Heads of Business Units, Appointment and Senate Confirmation, and Senator Lamb.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Clarence Lamb, Senator District 12, here to present Senate Bill 630. This is also a very simple bill and seeks to require Senate confirmation for the heads of the 6 modal agencies under the Maryland Department of Transportation. These agencies, as I'm sure probably most of you are aware of, are the Maryland Aviation Administration, the Ports Administration, the Transit Administration, the State Highway Administration, the Motor Vehicle Administration, and the Maryland Transportation Authority. These agencies and heads are very different than deputies and assistant secretaries in other departments. They tend to have significant deference in the management of their agencies and are often treated very differently than other agencies and departments as well. For example, until only recently, the Ports Commission and the Maryland Aviation Administration were permitted to use expedited procurement. Additionally, unlike other deputies and assistants, these modal heads are appointed with the approval of the governor, which means they straddle the line between being subordinate staff to the secretary and also being direct gubernatorial appointments. And if you look at the bill itself, some of these modal directors are explicitly named as being approved by the governor. And that's why I believe, at least, that they should be treated differently than deputy secretaries and assistant secretaries. And I think that distinction is already drawn out in the statute itself. These modals each also have very significant budgets that rival the budgets overseen by many of the Senate confirmed secretaries. Just to give you some examples, the State Highway Administration budget, $1.98 billion, the Ports Administration, $340 million, MVA, $265 million, MTA, $1.7 billion, MAA, $380 million. With these budgets, the modal agencies would be some of our biggest departments if they were standalone departments themselves. And I do want to be clear that this would not affect any of the current modal directors, given the effective date of the bill. And it's also not a reflection on the current modal directors as well. I know many folks have expressed support, for example, for MBA Administrator Ms. Nizer, who's been well appreciated for her responsiveness to all of us. And so, however, I think that it is important to have accountability over these modal directors. And this bill offers a simple check through the Senate confirmation, advise, and consent process on these folks. I think there are modal agencies that have been a little bit more fraught and less responsive. For example, MDTA's lack of responsiveness on on the, and this is bipartisan concern that has come forward on easy pass billing and being able to address some of the misbilling invoices that have occurred to some of our drivers in the past. MDTA also pushed back on addressing billing concerns even after an Office of Legislative Audits highlighted and brought them forward. And then, as most of you are probably aware, that has been covered by Maryland Matters as well, there's been a very controversial handling of procurements at the Maryland Aviation Administration with not just one, but two current contracts that are up before MAA, both the concessions contract, which has been very fraught, and the now more recently the baggage handling contract, among other things also, both of which are now sitting before the Board of Contract Appeals because of the controversy that's come forward. I was a little bit surprised that this bill has public opposition, and Mr. Bariano, I believe, will be coming forward to testify in his personal capacity in opposition. I do want to make clear, when you look at some of those Maryland Matters articles, it cites the fact that Mr. Bariano was an advisor, although not a registered lobbyist, to some of these companies. And so, you know, I think he can respond to that if he would like, but I think that gives me a lot of pause when you look at, you know, where the opposition, in particularly from the public side, is coming from. This is a good government and public accountability bill. And so, you know, I think if you ask any member of the public whether these large modal entities would, or whether they thought these were approved by the Senate, most people in the public would probably say yes. And so in closing, unlike many of our departments, our constituents are impacted by the work of the MDOT modals every single day, whether it delays getting a driver's license, or that there are maintenance or upkeep issues on our state roads or highways, or buses running behind, or issues with Easy Pass. Our constituents are frequently reaching out to our offices about modal related concerns. And I believe it's important that the modals are responsive to these concerns. And one way to increase that accountability is to simply have them come before this committee for just advice and consent of the Senate.
Thank you, Senator. Do I have questions for Senator Lamb? Senator Croza?
Thank you. I think we need to recognize there's always an inherent tension between the legislative and executive branches of government, which is why the earlier bill, there seems, you know, when you talk about boards and commissions, that makes sense with the Senate confirmation. But this, when you're now, right, you are in executive branch territory. So you open up this door with, you know, with, you know, on these specific positions for advice and consent of the Senate, it's not, then that could open it up for other departments, other positions. So I don't see where, once you open this door, where it would stop, and how would you address those concerns?
I think that's why we're here as a committee, to make that determination, who should actually come forward. And, you know, I think, as I outlined in my testimony earlier, I think these modals are very significant. They're very large. They have very large budgets. They, in many ways, have a lot of independence that is even, you know, beyond what you would expect deputy secretaries and assistant secretaries to have. And so, you know, I think the distinction is already drawn in statute, with some of these directors already being cited in statute as being approved by the governor. And so I think it's reasonable, because of those reasons, to have them come forward as simply a check and balance to the process. As you mentioned, you know, having accountability is important. This is a very small and simple step to ensure that accountability.
Senator Zucker?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Senator Lamb, did the administration weigh in at all? I just can't see anything on it.
They did not have an opinion on this. We did reach out to Secretary Wiedefeld. They didn't voice any issues with the bill. Thank you.
Senator Augustine?
Thank you. Senator, do the administrations in the Department of Health, do they come and get the advice and consent of the Senate? I mean, they're huge.
They do not. I'm
talking about Medicaid, right, developmental disabilities, behavioral health, public health. I mean, wouldn't you agree that those two are really large and have a tremendous amount of responsibility in them?
They are large, but I think it's beyond just being large. I think it's the independence that they also have from the home department itself. BHA and Medicaid all fall directly under the Maryland Department of Health, and they're led by deputy secretaries. These seven agencies rather, are led by directors that are appointed very differently than how the deputy secretaries and assistant secretaries are selected. Even in statute, it's cited that they would need to be approved by the governor. And so if the governor is approving of these individuals in a way that's distinctly different in statute compared to, say, the Behavioral Health Administration Deputy Secretary, then I think there's a reason for us to be able to also hold these folks to a higher standard of accountabilities, particularly citing all the concerns that I've just mentioned earlier with audits and contracts to ensure that there's openness and accountability in the process.
Okay, I'm sure you would agree we have a lot of that inside of these two, inside of health, right? The same problems that we've talked
Sure,
about.
but they're handled differently in the statute. They're addressed differently in statute.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Hayes, you're next.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. And, I think you know where I am on this. I have serious issues with it. And most of them have been raised by a lot of our other colleagues when they talk about the separation of powers. I think you did a good job at articulating some of the other accountability measures that we do already have in place, such as audits, contracts. I think one that you missed out was the budgets, in which, we as a legislative body often hold the executive branch accountable. And so I'll ask the same question I asked for the other one, which I thought, made sense. Unlike this one, what brought is there something that happened that brought this on? Why now?
So, I think when you look at some of the examples that I brought forward, right, and as the chair of the Joint Audits Committee, we have had some very fraught hearings with prior administrators of MDTA, for example. And, we're hearing of concerns with how the MAA concessions contract and baggage handling contract were handled, hence why they're coming before the Board of Contract Appeals. I think it's important, and it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't affect the current folks that are going to be serving these roles. This is really forward-looking to make sure that we can reassure the public of the accountability and transparency in the process there, to serve as that double check. And if there are concerns such as the ones that we're hearing in these audits or in these contracts, that we have an opportunity as senators to be able to ask them those questions, to be able to provide that reassurance back to us that we can provide to our constituents as well.
I won't belabor the issue. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator James.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Following up a little bit on the prior question, just as someone who'd served on the Budget Committee in the House for a very long time, and also was subcommittee chair for transportation, my recollection was that we had these executive directors testifying all the time. And if there was an issue, many of which you sort of referenced over a period of time, those were delved into. And also just because of the power of the purse and how we operated, there was enormous ability to hold people accountable. So what I'm struggling with this bill is that unless someone is up for an appointment at a moment in which you're aware of what an issue, I don't see how our confirmation could in any way hold these individuals to a higher standard of accountability than unless you are aware of the issue. So I'm trying to figure out how you think that would work technically, when I think we have a lot of interaction with these entities, with these people over a period of time in the budget, and as you said, legislative audits. And then the second half of my question is, 3 or 4 times you've mentioned, the governor is, there's a little bit of distinction here that he's appointing them, but I haven't yet heard how you connect that specifically to why we should be weighing in. I mean, other than the fact that he's appointing them, and I think there's a history to that, and maybe you want to elaborate on it, but I don't see even that history making the case for you. But so just sort of those two broad issues.
Yeah, I'll take the second one first. And so the distinction there is that when you look at the secretaries and the cabinet members, they are appointed by the governor. And so, if you were to draw an equivalent line to these individuals where they are also appointed by the governor, I think it's important to have them go through a similar equivalent process of advise and consent from the Senate to be able to take on those roles, just like the secretaries do. And so, the deputy secretaries are handled very differently in statute. There is no, direct involvement in the statute from the governor in those selections that would, I think, bring them forward in a similar way as the cabinet members themselves. To your first point of your question, the budget hearings do serve an important purpose, and I served on House Appropriations as well. But I think there's a distinction here in that these are individuals that are coming forward for the first time to be nominated for or appointed for these roles. This is before they enter into budget hearings and such. Budget hearings occur obviously once they're in that role. This is an opportunity for us as senators, as this committee, to be able to ask those questions of the folks that are coming forward, some of whom may have things in their history or in their past that warrant questions being asked, just like we saw tonight. And so, I think that's where there's a distinction between folks that are coming forward for budget hearings, where they're coming through annually to talk about things that are going on within the department and agency, and Senate confirmation in the advise and consent process, where we actually have an opportunity to ask some questions before they even get into that role.
Thank you. Senator Reedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very quickly, one point and then a quick question. First of all, thanks for your consistency, because I know you talked about this last year and it's a new administration, and I appreciate that you're consistently bringing this issue up, whether we end up all agreeing or not. I think it is an important discussion to have. My question is, when we have cabinet appointees, they're serving generally for the 4-year term. Obviously, they can leave. With these folks, they might stay on through administration. Is this an appointment one time? And then if they stay on, is there ever a point where they have to come back before us, or if they're reappointed? How would that work if we pass this bill?
Right, so that's a good question. So it would only occur during the first time that they're appointed by the governor who's serving at that time. And so I think the response to that is what Senator James was bringing up, that they have an opportunity to come before the senators during budget hearings after they're appointed. But in this instance, it would only be the first time. And you're correct in that there's not a term of office that these individuals would serve in. So they would continue to serve at the pleasure of the governor until someone is newly approved by the governor, appointed by the governor. And so they would not
to interrupt you, just for the sake of time, do they automatically resign right now, or do they stay on the job? Because obviously we have staff that may transition in and out with new administration, but they're folks who will stay on maybe for several months or a year even. Is that with these positions, is that normally how they do it now?
No, they're not required to resign. So they can continue in their roles. And we've seen many folks, continue through from the past administration to the current administration. They're not required to resign. That is their choice. If they choose to do so, they certainly can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Senator Rose.
Yeah, just a very quick question. The only argument you made, Senator, that got my attention, I didn't know that these folks had to be approved by the governor. Do you know the history of when that came about, why it came about, what the theory behind that is?
That well predates me. I don't know the history of why that came about.
All right, thank you.
I just want to make one clarification that they are the appointment of the executive director with approval of the governor, but the appointment is actually recommended or made by the Secretary of Transportation. So I just want to make sure that's clear. If there are no other questions from the Senate for our senator, we have one person signed up to testify, and it's Mr. Barron.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chairman, and Mr. President, and members of the committee. My name is Bruce Beriano, for the record, and I'm here as an individual in opposition to this legislation. I respect Senator Lamb. We have a difference of opinion, but this is a very unnecessary piece of legislation. I do want to correct one thing that respectfully Senator Lamb said. I don't know what he's referring to, but I'm no advisor to anybody. I'm either a registered lobbyist or I'm not involved at all. I want to make that very clear. I'm as ethical as they come. I really am. It's interesting that this bill, you have a Democratic governor, very unusual, very unique, first of time in the history, Maryland Democratic governor, and you want to handcuff him with this legislation. Governor Mandel in 1971 created the Department of Transportation, first in the country, unusually taking all the modals and bring them together. There's still states that haven't done that. And Maryland has benefited since that time with a cohesive and a very integrated transportation system. Respectfully, let's be candid with each other. We've all been here for a while. I've been here 52 years. The legislation can say what it wants, but no one gets appointed or keeps in a job unless whoever is the governor says that's okay. That is true. The modals, you could say the secretary appoints, but the secretary is not going to appoint someone to a key position unless they have the approval of the governor's office or the appointment office. Those are the realities. And I'm not criticizing it. There's nothing wrong with that. A governor comes in and he or she, hopefully someday a she, will want to have their own people operating and running the government. There's never been a single problem in the 50 years or so that this has been in place, and it works well. I'll say just lastly, you all have so many authorities to check these modal directors. You have the budget hearings, you have pins, you have money you can cut, you have money you can put in the budget textually. You have a new amendment that gives you dramatic authority. So the notion that you have no ability to deal with the behavior, the conduct, or the disagreements of these modals is not proper. I hope someday all of you become governor of the state of Maryland. And if you do become governor of the state of Maryland, you're going to rue the day if this bill is ever passed. I would respectfully urge an unfavorable vote. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Perfect 2 minutes, Mr. Mariano. Thank you.
I knew that last slide would get everyone's attention.
Senator Lamb, do you have a question for this witness?
Yeah, just a quick clarifying question to Mr. Bariano. I'm reading out of the Maryland Matters article directly. It says Bariano is not registered to lobby for the company.
Right, that's a lie. That's an absolute lie in that article. I'm not an investor, and I've been registered for the company.
You are.
It's an absolute lie.
So you are registered to lobby for the company, or you're not?
I have been. I have been long before that article was published, and I've never been an investor in the company. I don't do stuff like that.
So you're saying that this is inaccurate?
Absolutely.
You're not
Senator.
registered to lobby for the company,
Absolutely,
however,
Senator.
but is described as an advisor.
I'm not well, if you're a lobbyist, you're advising your client. I've been a registered lobbyist for the client long before the article was published. And I've never been an advisor. I've never been an investor, also as the article indicates. I would never do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Josh Kurtz doesn't call me and verify things before he publishes things.
Do I have any other questions for this witness? Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. If I just say one last thing in personal privilege, I've been around here 52 years. I've never testified before the Executive Nominations Committee. Now I have. Thank you.
We were delighted to hear from you, Mr. Mariano. Okay. Now, do I have any other questions? Do I have a motion? You want to hold it? Do you want to make?
Madam Chair, I ask that we hold this piece of hold Senate Bill 630.
We do have a technical amendment, so it's probably best if we hold it. So we will look at that next. Thank you. Thank you all very much. It was a long evening. I appreciate it.